very warm welcome to the National Waterfront Museum. It's, I think it's going to be in for a fascinating evening of historic film and contemporary music. Well, contemporary music to accompany the film, really. So, without further ado, can I introduce this from Thomas, who's going to talk us through the basic background to this, and then on to the wonderful musicians who will play and work with it, really. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Thomas. I'm a former head of arts in the BBC, film producer and executive producer in television and film. The reason I'm here is because I commissioned the music in the first place when I was at the BBC. So I commissioned John to write this wonderful music for this fantastic collection of animation. So, to kick off, and don't worry, there's not going to be too much speaking. You'll be mainly watching the films and listening to the wonderful music. But ladies and gentlemen, children, friends, Romans countrymen, film buffs, and music lovers, huge welcome, of course, to you all to the wonderful Waterfront Museum for our Cartoons in Concert, which is part of the Swansea Festival of Music and the Arts, as you well know. I'm pleased to introduce you to our fantastic Jerry the Troublesome Tyke's Pit Orchestra. They've been flown in from all parts of the world to be here this evening. Well, Cardiff, Swansea, Newport maybe. No, it's fantastic to have them here. And of course, John Rea, the incredibly talented composer who has written all the music you will hear tonight. John has spent many years writing music for stage, theatre, film, TV and concert halls, and was a pupil of one of Wales' most distinguished composers, the late Alan Hodernott. He's also won quite a few BAFTAs, this chap. So, great to see you all here, and it's fantastic you've all made it out to get to know Jerry the Tyke a little bit. I'll tell you more about him later. He's quite a chap. But for now, let's go to the movies. We're going to dip some lights, if that's all right. We're going to get into cinema mode. No kissing in the back row, please. We will be watching. But please do enjoy yourselves, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Jerry once we've seen a few films. John. That they can respond to the images on screen. So do bear with us. It's a complicated game, but we'll try again. We'll try again. Of course, Jerry is not very PC, as you can probably gather. He gets up with all sorts of tricks, no problem hitting a bird, or even killing a bird probably. That's Jerry for you. Obviously, as you can probably tell, there's usually a little moral in the story with Jerry. You know, there's always, if you lie, you get into trouble, or if you do something, you get into trouble. And that was all part of the message. It's quite clever, actually. And of course, so much to happen in the orchestra score. John's going to talk a bit more about that later. A little bit of background on Jerry, if I may. Jerry the Tyke, also known as Jerry the Troublesome Tyke, for good reason, as you just found out, is a cartoon dog created during the silent film era by Cardiff-based animator Sid Griffiths, and shown throughout British cinemas as part of Pathé Pictorial screen news magazines. Take yourselves back, transport yourselves back to Saturday morning cinema. You know those morning shows? We were all there. Maybe a bit later than this period, it was the same thing, where these short films were shown. Jerry the Tyke was the first animated series ever to be made in Wales. It was a huge thing. This extremely naughty cat first came to life in 1925 by animator Sid Griffiths with photographer and friend Bert Bilby, who both worked as projectionists at Cardiff's Capital Cinema. Inspired by the American animation Felix the Cat, Jerry the Tyke was a mixture of live action sequences and animation, similar in style to Max Fleischer's Out of the Inkwell series. Max Fleischer brought Betty Boop, Coco the Clown, Popeye and Superman to the movie screen, and was responsible for a number of technological innovations. Felix the Cat might have been the elder brother, so to speak, but Jerry soon developed his own personality and character, becoming hugely popular with audiences. Animation such as this was in its infancy, and Sid was a true innovator and pioneer, pushing his imagination and the technology of the day to its limits. We should remember that it wasn't until the late 1920s that Walt Disney's Mickey Mouse arrived on the scene, and we had to wait until 1940 for William Hanna and Joseph Barber to release their wonderful Tom and Jerry animation epic series of 114 films for Metro Golden Mayer, centering on a never-ending rivalry between a cat, Tom, and a mouse, Jerry, whose chases and battles often involved comic violence. Despite this, they sometimes became allies to defeat a greater enemy, such as Spike the dog. Well, Sid's Jerry had been up to his old tricks, fighting battles, causing trouble, hurting birds, and up to no good long before Mickey or Tom had arrived to wreak havoc on our screens. It was that early. More than 40 animations were created by Sid between 1925 and 1927 and were shown throughout the world. Each silent film, and they were silent at the time of course, lasted for about 4 minutes and often featured Griffiths interacting with Jerry, as we saw in that last film. Sid was a true pioneer in the emerging world of animation. Unfortunately, for many years, the collection of Jerry the Tyke cartoons were lost somewhere deep in the archives. But the lost episodes were rediscovered in recent years by the Welsh Animation Group, led by the late Dave Berry, who found them covered in dust in the vaults of British Pathé at Pinewood. What to find? In 2002, Welsh actor Rhys Evans worked with BBC Wales to provide narration to several of the original Jerry the Tyke episodes, with new music written by John, originally performed by the BBC National Orchestra Wales. The rediscovery of the films has resulted in Jerry the Tyke being introduced to modern audiences, like tonight, being shown on the BBC and featuring in silent film festivals across the world. Today, the films form part of the collection of the National Screen and Sound Archives of Wales. So, at least we've kept them, and hopefully through the music that we're hearing tonight, they can be taken to new audiences. But now, some more Jerry. I think you've heard enough history for a moment. I wonder what he's been up to next. John. Lights. honesty is the best policy. Please remember that when you all leave this evening. As you could tell, our lovely Jerry has now become a thief. He's also become a little stupid. He didn't know to go around the fence. I mean, he gets up to all tricks. The animation in that, the train, was incredibly advanced for the time. I mean, that takes a bit of doing. It really does in animation terms. It is tremendously difficult to keep that going like that. And it was a pioneering technique that Sid developed. Obviously, so much going on. The kitchen sink is going on back there. There's so many musical influences, and I'm sure musicians amongst the audience here will have picked up on some of that. I know John wants to say something specific about the musical content and the influences that have actually gone into the writing of this music. So I'll hand over to John for a minute.
He's a bit Tyke, isn't he? There were a lot of influences. If you think of where Sid was, say, pre-1925, he was a projectionist at the Capitol Odeon. So think of music of the 20s, you've got to think of ragtime. Think of Gershwin, you know, the clarinet, Rhapsody in Blue. You think of all these different influences, Scott Joplin, the ragtime bands of the era. And he would have been hearing all this infused into the pianists who would have accompanied in the smaller cinemas, maybe an organist. And the larger cinemas, even full orchestras they had in London, the Palladium and places like that. So when Paul gave me this challenge to try and bring a voice to Jerry, the clarinet seemed an obvious instrument of that era. It has a kind of quirkiness, doesn't it? You know, that bit at the beginning of Rhapsody in Blue that rises. There's a cheekiness already. You're in a different time, aren't you? You're in the 20s, you know, anything's possible between the wars. And there's a sense of fun, you know, if Jerry brings anything apart from naughtiness, there's a sense of fun. And musically, I tried to capture that in, obviously, the obvious ragtime influences you hear in music, you know, that are kind of a nod to that, the music of the era, the use of the muted trumpet. And also, it's a nod, like Paul mentioned Tom and Jerry, and the great composer Fred Quimby, who I think established. And before him, there's a lesser-known composer who did the early Roadrunner films, remember him? In the mid-50s, who did a lot to establish the style of animation music, which was really dissonant stuff, you know, because there's dissonant stuff going on screen. You know, you go to see your mainstream cinema, or film rather, live action, Max Steiner, Gone with the Wind, all very Wagnerian, flowing melodies, whereas you went to see the animations and it was really concise, quite avant-garde, jazz-tinged music. So I'm hoping I've done some credit to the greats, such as Carl Stalling and Fred Quimby. But I think it's a moment to perhaps familiarise you in a lot of this music. You hear a lot of these effects, but you're never introduced to the instruments that kind of make these noises. Can we have a car horn, please? That's right. Do we have a vibrator? Yeah, flexitone. So that gives you an idea of the great things to come. So I think I'll get on with it. I think that's good.